This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KVNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
President and CEO of the Center for Security Policy, Fred Fleitz, joins us. Fred is a former chief of staff for the National Security Council, former chief analyst with the CIA, and he was a congressional aide as well. Before we get to you, Fred, I do want to give folks an understanding of what's going on right now, here and now, in Afghanistan. Our CIA director meeting with the Taliban, and Fred will speak to that and what his thoughts are and how that could unfold in the future. Let's go to Fox Live now.
Taking a live now look over the Kabul International Airport as we were able to confirm some breaking news this morning, learning that a senior U.S. official confirmed to Fox News that CIA Director William Burns secretly met with Taliban leader Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar in Kabul on Monday. It was first reported by the Washington Post, and the rendezvous was the highest level in-person meeting between the Biden administration and the Taliban since the group took control of Afghanistan's capital earlier this month. Now, President Biden dispatched his top spy, who was a veteran of the Foreign Service and the most decorated diplomat in his cabinet, amid a frantic effort to evacuate people from Kabul International Airport.
There you go. Fred Fleitz joins us. Fred, what's your take on that? My guess is you've worked, and William Burns was a former colleague of yours at the Central Intelligence Agency.
Well, I knew Burns when I worked for John Bolton at the State Department in the 2000s. And he's a Democrat. I didn't agree with him most of the time, but I thought he was a decent guy, principled guy. And he's by far the most competent foreign policy official in the Biden administration. And I'm hearing people complaining today that he was working out a surrender deal with the Taliban. I think he was in an impossible situation. Biden had to send someone to make the best of this mess. And if I was going to send anybody, I would have sent Burns. It's a terrible assignment. We don't know what he negotiated, but frankly, I'm very glad that Biden sent Burns to do this and not some of the other incompetent hangers-on like Anthony Blinken and Jake Sullivan.
Looking at townhall.com, looking at some of the other news sources, right of center, it appears, and I don't know how they would get the intel. I have to chuckle a bit because it's like, what, were you at the meeting? I don't know. But a few articles have already surfaced this morning that suggest that the Taliban basically gave the middle finger and said, we're not budging at all. We're not going to give any concessions. I don't know how anyone absent authority that was there that probably isn't going to write an article or opine about it. I don't know how anyone would know about this. What's your take? And right up to now, almost noon on Tuesday, August 24th, 2021, we're live here, of course. What's the latest on this, or has there been any information from the CIA on what the Taliban said?
Well, I don't know what went on in the meeting. It looks like we just decided to roll over, and we just let them come into Kabul. We were sticking with this August 31 date, although recently the administration has realized that setting that date was a bad idea. They're trying to change that date. The Taliban has said no, and now we're hearing Biden officials saying they're going to stick by that date, and they can get all Americans out who want to get out by that date. Well, you know, Tom, I watched Jennifer Griffin after one of Biden's press conferences, and she was just apoplectic trying to get through the sea of lies and incoherent statements Biden said. We're in a very bad place right now.
It sure seems like it. You know, when you were the chief of staff for the National Security Council under John Bolton, and so many fans of John Bolton's appearing again now, they're saying we wish John Bolton was there and Fred Fleitz was there because we wouldn't see concessions and the apparent weakness that the U.S. government is indicating under Biden and Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is like absentia vice president in and of herself. But do you think that under your and Bolton's administration and Trump, do you think you might have been sent with Bolton to this, or is this absolutely a CIA priority when there's meeting with a hostile government or regime?
No, it wouldn't. It ordinarily would have been the Secretary of State or National Security Advisor, but the CIA has a relationship negotiating with the Taliban, that was a reason to send Burns. Look, if people like Pompeo or Bolton or Mattis were in the government, they would have resigned before it got this far. They would have said, no, we can't go all this. This plan is a terrible idea, Mr. President. We're out of here. And I think that the people surrounding the president were, if they objected, they went along with it in the end. And I think that makes them culpable too.
Whether it's National Review or the many publications nationally that you've written for, or on Fox News Nightly, where I've seen you, or CNN, you name it, you've been all over the place. I don't know how you get any sleep. We're talking with Fred Fleitz, former National Security Council Chief of Staff, and in your role now with the Center for Security Policy as the CEO there. If you were asked advice on this, it may be too late to give it. As you say, we've already moved forward. What would you have done a couple months ago? Would you have stayed in Afghanistan longer and had a better demobilization plan?
Well, Mike Pompeo has explained how President Trump had a conditions-based plan, and if the Taliban was violating their commitments, that they were trying to seize cities by force, we would have intervened. Now, look, in the end, it could be the Taliban would have taken over the country anyway under Trump. But I think there would have been an orderly withdrawal. We would have withdrawn or destroyed all the military equipment at U.S. bases in Afghanistan. We would have taken care of the Afghan citizens who assisted us. This couldn't have been done more wrong. And it was all done because Biden wanted a talking point to brag about, that he got U.S. troops out by September 11, 2021.
When you don't hear contrition, and you've been, I won't call you a bureaucrat, but I mean, you've worked in government and lived there for decades. You've given your life to this country in your work and career. You and your colleagues, you elbow rub with the Boltons and the Hoekstras and the folks that have been in either in the congressional realm or in the actual intelligence community or think tanks, now more so there. What's the consensus? Beyond, we got to get rid of Biden in 3 more years, and that's a no-brainer. Is there any remedy or mitigation or resolution to this? Could it be 2022 with the U.S. Senate changing? I think that you're going to see Sununu run and win in New Hampshire, and that'll bring us a majority in the U.S. Senate. So that could change things, maybe in the House as well.
Well, we would need a 2/3 majority to impeach Biden, so we would need to win quite a few seats in the Senate. I'm stunned at how many people are coming out and saying Biden is no longer qualified to be commander-in-chief. Even Chris Wallace implied this when he said something talking to Blinken on the weekend. Does Biden not know what's going on? I mean, for Wallace, who's so reserved and moderate, to imply that the president may not know what's going on in maybe not just in national security, I just think is stunning. Biden has to bring in men and women of principle and character and gravitas to fix this mess. He should sack his national security team. We need a Kissinger or a Condoleezza Rice or a Jim Baker to sort of take control of this and stand up to the president when he puts forward ideas that are frankly just bonkers.
Back in 1988, former Reagan administration official Frank Gaffney Jr. founded the Center for Security Policy. Now Fred, his good friend, runs it as CEO. What about getting Frank in there? Frank's probably like, no way. I would love to see a change. I laugh, but it's really not funny because at the end of the day, there is irreparable harm to some level. And you literally cited 2 things that I bring up often on my show, which is the infrastructure that was left and the fact that they got a hold of it and it was operable and it's usable, helicopters, weaponry, and then the fact that the folks that supported, not just Americans, but the folks that supported us from Afghanistan were left for the most part and either killed or taken into custody. Fred, I appreciate your time. We will follow you. Do you have an op-ed forthcoming or one out today that we should look out for?
Well, my newest op-ed was in the Federalist, and it ran yesterday about the urgency that Biden replace his national security team.
We're making a YouTube video of this interview, and we'll put that in the link and description below. Fred Fleitz, always a pleasure.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Tom. Good
Absolutely. You betcha. Thank you, sir. That's Fred Fleitz, CEO, President of the Center for Security Policy. Yes, former Chief of Staff, National Security Council under John Bolton. Always an honor. And I'll tell you right now, don't just say a prayer for Afghanistanians and the Afghans, the folks that are there from other countries that are frightened and trying to save themselves. Say a prayer that we get better leadership, as Fred dialogued about us and about this with us. It's serious and it's grave and it's consequential, and we have to change things in the next election cycle. Stay with us. Tom Anderson Show.